gets an appointment at the new office she has just rented. She plans to provide the young entrepreneurs with mentoring, financial support, and a common workspace.
In the incubator, we're going to also receive the young lady's office. The office also going to be in our office. So we need more space, but this is just the beginning where people can try to find us.
There's still a lot left to do before the launch, but Patience Barandengue is one step closer to reaching her goal.
Patient's story shows that if you empower a woman, you empower her family, and it has a ripple effect on the community. Our next story is on Chateau Mahamadou, an activist who speaks against injustice, social issues, and equality in Niger.
The houses have gone, demolished just a few weeks ago. A new bridge is being built here, as well as a bypass. Residents live in the ruins. This woman wants to give them a voice. Chateau Mahamadou. The human rights activist is producing a live radio show here between the ruins and the building site. 3 generations have lived here, in the center of Niamey.
If we do the program here, then those who rule this country will see that they have to govern better, that they have done something bad here, and that they have to change their behavior. If there are some people of goodwill there, then hopefully things will change.
The following day at Espace Citoyen, or Citizen Space, a human rights organization where Chateau Mahamadou presents her radio show. Human rights, the situation of women, abortion, the poor level of education in Niger. These are all topics discussed here. In today's editorial meeting, corruption is on the agenda. Many programs are a thorn in the side of the government, but these journalists are undeterred.
Why should we stop? There are no taboos. If there were, that would slow us down, and I don't want any slowing down of social life. We have to break down the barriers. We want to be transparent. The world has to change, and we have to continue to develop and move forward.
Chateau Mahamadou grew up with 6 siblings on the outskirts of Niamey. Her father had 2 households, as he had 2 wives. Despite all the difficulties, the 41-year-old has inherited her courage from her family. Unusually for Niger, her parents gave her the freedom to choose her profession and did not marry her off against her will. As a child, Chateau was very demanding, her mother says.
When she was young, she was so curious. She always wanted to know exactly what was going on around her. She asked lots of questions, and we always had to answer, even if we didn't know everything.
And it's that confident approach that Mahamadou takes out into the community. On this day, she's given a voice to more than 10 families. And Chateau Mahamadou won't stop until the people living at the building site receive more compensation from city authorities.
I love Chateau. She's a fierce, fearless woman. Now, from social activists, we head to the woman in politics in Senegal. President Sall inspired a young woman, Thérèse Faye-Dieu, to lead without worrying about her gender.
This is Thérèse Faye-Dieu's office. The Derrière Maire is on maternity leave and gets her files from City Hall delivered to her house, an opportunity not afforded to many women in Senegal. There were so many hostile comments from men who said I was too young and as a woman I could never be mayor of the city. But the women in my community mobilised for me, since they are very much aware that real problems in this country are ones that directly affect women and children.
Liés à la condition féminine, c'est des problèmes qui touchent directement les femmes et les enfants.
Diouf comes from a wealthy family. Nannies and domestic workers help her cope with the demands of everyday life. Her youngest daughter is just a few months old. She admits she's privileged. She says she owes a lot to her mentor, the president of Senegal, Macky Sall. President Sall inspired me to join politics. I was so impressed by how he supported local initiatives, that he supported youths and women's groups and students. And so we, the young people from around here, said, this is a man we need to support. While she was still a student, Diouf began campaigning for Sall, who'd only just formed his political party. When he became president, Sall rewarded her for her commitment and put her in charge of his party's youth organisation. The members of the group have nothing but admiration for their boss. Yesterday you were in the maternity ward, and today you are here before us. This shows your commitment and your strength, and shows that you're just as strong as a man. Diouf's commitment to her work and her support for the president are unwavering. Everyone she works with here wants President Sall to win a second term. Diouf's day is not over. After the party meeting, she heads off to a kindergarten. She's the Director General of the Federation of Public Kindergartens, a job she also owes to her mentor. At the moment, Senegal has about 1,500 state preschools and kindergartens. Diouf hopes to significantly increase that number, especially in rural regions. All of us working in the Senegalese education system have sent out a message that now everyone, even people in remote rural areas, know that they have to send their children to school. That's why preschool education in Senegal, which wasn't very developed, is now making progress. Diouf belongs to a generation of young Senegalese who've been educated abroad. But she's hoping that these children will have the opportunity to finish their schooling right here at home.
We have a lot of leading women in Africa. We've highlighted a few. Take a look. We'll take a break, and when we come back from the break, more on great women across the continent.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
It's often equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
No talk, they will beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
Welcome back. Now we head to Ghana, where a social enterprise teaches girls technology basics.
How many of you know what coding is?
It's workshops like these that Regina Honu envisioned when she started Tech Needs Girls. The social enterprise focuses on teaching girls technology basics so that they gain confidence in the idea of taking up a future career in the technology sector.
For most of the girls, they have no idea who a software developer is. They don't know much about technology. So we really start from the basics to give them a good foundation.
As a young girl, Honu wanted to become a rocket scientist. But growing up in Ghana, she was quickly told where others thought her place was.
I wanted to develop my own rocket because I'd never traveled. And I was told girls don't build rockets, I'll end up in the kitchen.
Not Honu. She studied computer science and started her own IT company, Soronco Solutions, which finances the Tech Needs Girls project. Every Monday and Wednesday, underprivileged girls learn IT skills here.
For some of them, the access to technology is low, they don't have any computers, and they're not going to be as competitive as the other students that they'll meet in university. So we really give them sort of an added advantage.
Over 2,000 girls are receiving training in 5 regions across Ghana and soon in Burkina Faso as well.
The girls from our program are developing really cool applications that solve some of our pressing needs on the continent.
More than half of Africa's population is female, and yet women are completely underrepresented when it comes to software solutions. Regina wants to change that, but her project isn't just about coding.
They won't just come and learn about coding, they'll come and learn about human-centered design, different societal issues that we'll address, and soft skills, you know, how to be a leader, how to speak up.
She's just a girl and she's on fire.
Graduation time. Regina has found a large textile company to sponsor her project. Together, they hand out diplomas to girls like Izatu Al-Hassan.
It's like football. Some are saying it's made for boys, only boys, but girls also can play. And due to ICT too, girls too can be powered to be creative in computer.
90 volunteers and 45 mentors are now teaching the girls. They hope the training will help empower them and give young women the skills and confidence to take the same risks as Regina Honu.
From tech girls in Ghana, we have a tech girl in Zambia, Regina, a self-taught website designer, empowering others.
For Regina Mtonga, the internet is a little bit of freedom. She says it makes people more self-reliant, which is especially important for women in Zambia. Regina's 27 and a self-employed web designer.
I went to college and I studied a degree in computer science, which had zero to no experience in websites. It's only later on 2 years that I taught myself how to make websites through YouTube videos, and also my husband taught me a few things and I did the rest.
Now Regina is passing on her know-how. In 2012, she founded the Asikana Network with 2 friends to teach women IT and computer technology. They faced daunting obstacles.
It's very difficult for women to, first of all, enter into IT and remain in IT because we get a lot of hate talk and hate behavior from people, because the first thing people will tell you is you can't do that because you're a woman.
Regina hasn't had it easy. In 2013, her father and mother died within a short time of each other. She was left to care for herself and her younger sister.
I felt like God had taken my mom away, and I honestly felt like He was punishing me for something that I had. I couldn't understand. Anything that could possibly go bad was going bad in my life. January 2014, I must honestly say that my life did change.
It was a change for the better. A year later, her work finally gained recognition, and from very high up, too.
Someone called Fabienne called and she said, Regina, I just wanted to be the first one to tell you you have been selected to be one of the 60 Queen's Young Leaders, the first 60 Queen's Young Leaders of 2015. And the guard came and asked me why I was making so much noise, and I told them, I'm going to meet the Queen of England. I'm going to meet the Queen.
She's been very busy ever since.
Yes, why? Because you don't seem like someone who's...
Regina has become a role model for many young women in
It
Zambia.
depends on how much you save per month and what you're doing to
They
save.
come to her classes to learn how to run their own businesses.
I think I can do it in a year. Something I've noticed about them is that they have felt so empowered that they feel they no longer have to be working a 9-to-5 job for someone else, but they tend to want to work for themselves, and it has been very successful for them. We have some very good examples of girls who are their own bosses now, making more money than I am.
Regina and her network have achieved something crucial: to show Zambian women that they can have control over the...
And that's all on some of the awesome women on the continent. Join us next week on Africa on the Move for more impacting stories across Africa. My name is Fumino JP. Bye.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Before the discovery of oil, there was the golden age of agriculture. Cotton, rice, groundnut, cocoa, timber, and oil palm were in abundance through harvesting. Each region in the country grew a crop or practiced a craft that served as a foreign exchange earner. The regional federalism in practice at the time allowed each region to control their politics and economy, making each economically independent and inward-looking for survival. By the time oil was discovered in 1958, Nigeria's political and economic structure had begun to change.
Every region was able to take care of itself, have strong institutions, have good political structures. Everybody was independent of the government at the center was not the all-powerful like what we have now. So If you look at that, and that's what we keep saying, that there's no state, now we look at states, or there's no region in Nigeria that cannot fend for itself if we decide to think inwardly. But the challenge was that immediately we saw oil, every other thing became secondary. We marched towards oil.
The oil boom brought economic prosperity to Nigeria from the 1950s and positioned her further as the giant of Africa. But the newfound wealth turned the country to a mono economy and caused an abandonment of other revenue streams like her agricultural produce.
The oil was a plus, it's not a minus, and that was supposed to actually make the economy to grow even faster, because there was an addition if we were able to sustain the agricultural production that we had. But I think that there was a decline in that area, and that means that a lot of emphasis was placed on the oil that was discovered. It was an easier way of making money for the government and the states. So the agricultural economy was abandoned, basically.
Diversified economy Nigeria became mono-economy Nigeria, and fiscal federalism became pseudo-federalism. Economic analyst Mukhtar Mohammed says the bridge between both points was the quality of Nigerian leadership.
Then we talk about Bafemi Awolowo, we talk about Tafawa Balewa, Ahmadu Bello, Michael Okpara and co. They could talk about any economic issues compared to now that they don't seem to have an idea, rather the technocrats sell the idea to them. They don't have any depth in terms of economic value.
As Nigeria clocks 60, Chris Ndulue looks back to measure the country's economic status in comparison with other oil-producing countries.
You cannot score Nigeria very high in so many areas, in almost all indices. If you look at where Nigeria was in 1960 when it got independence, you look at where Nigeria was in the 70s, 10 years, 15 years after independence. At that time, yes, we were the giant of Africa, and everybody was looking up to Nigeria to be the leading light, to provide that economic emancipation of the African continent. But that hasn't happened.
Looking ahead, Ndulue and Mukhtar make these key suggestions for the economic growth of Nigeria.
Let's go back to education. Let's see how we can come up with that, not the 6334. We used to have the technical school, so not everybody will say, I don't have knowledge to go to school, but I can still make chairs. I can still be a carpenter. I can still be a trader. Those are the type of things that we need to begin to see. Look at our people, not just pushing the foreign education to them. Foreign education is good, but what is education? I tell you, education is for people to read and write. Once they can read and write, can they look at what they can do better?
We need to give the states more autonomy in terms of economic issues. Economic freedom for the states is important because the states can now decide to look at the human resources they have and decide on how to channel their energies into productive things.
Nigeria is the largest producer of oil in Africa, endowed with other natural resources and over 200 million strong population. Yet, 40% of her people, or 82 million Nigerians, live below the poverty line. Analysts say the way out is economic diversification and a return to fiscal federalism, like the days before the discovery of oil. Annetta, Felix, Plus TV Africa.
welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Usaiwa Misale, and today we have Temi Popola and Uti Elu in the building. All the James Bond moves that we did today.
Hallos. We won't have to teach you how to pronounce her name.
Oh, Temi. It's not Temi. Oh, Popola.
It's not even Temi. It is Temi.
Oh, Temi. Oh, okay, no vexo.
There's a K before that P. It's not a.
Popola. Oh, Popola. All right, so how is Popola doing today?
Okay, she's fine, thank you.
So how have you been? We've not seen no since enter. So many things were just happening, and okay, yeah, we saw online. We saw online.
Last week.
No, I'm talking about in the studio.
Okay, yes.
We saw online.
Yes,
yeah. How have you been?
Fine, thank you.
So how was I hear you attended Wimbase. What did you learn there?
So much. There's so much about leadership. I don't want to get into everything, but the core of it for me, or the greatest take home I had, was leadership. I learned how that leaders are people who are empathetic. Leaders are people who lead by example, and there's so many of these people who are leading by example, women who are doing great things in Nigeria. It's just good to be in that network of people, learn, be inspired.
I have my reservations, but I will keep it to myself.
Okay. Yeah. That's the story for another day.
I'm not even going to say it on air. Trust me, they will not like it. How about you, Uti? How are you doing?
I'm good. So I feel like I haven't been in the studio for a while. So it's good to be back on set. But we had the kind of madness that I think I thrive on chaos. So me driving my James Bond style, I drive with like a heavy foot, So. But yeah, we're here. It's great to be back on set and with a topic that I think we like to.
Very interesting conversation. Very interesting conversation. Yesterday, I want to quickly mention that yesterday we had the LASMA boss on the show yesterday, and so it's so interesting how today coming to work was hell. Literally hell. There's something I did I will not confess on TV, so they will not arrest me. But if not for the military. The military presence at Abraham Adesanya, it would have been chaos. I would have had to turn back home. Maybe you guys would have just done the show without me, or maybe I'll join via Zoom from home. It was really bad, and I keep saying this, and what he said yesterday played out. So people that were doing one way, right? Instead of you to go and just manage one lane or one way by the side, they spread out and took over. They created 4 lanes blocking the oncoming. So how do you expect in your head? Are you not thinking that if these people are not free to move, don't you think that is what is causing this other traffic that you're trying to run away from? I don't know how people think. It was really chaotic.
People always show us on the road that they're not thinking, and I think I constantly say it on the show, and people always take me to task. 2 wrongs never make a right. You can't give what you don't have, which is why it sounds sometimes people think, oh, you sound very empathetic to the government. I'm like, no, I'm not. I simply think that we should all hold ourselves to the same standard. So when you feel that what you're doing is justified in some way, shape or form, you're just creating an avenue for you to live in the gray. And once we start to, everything is justifiable from some perspective.
I'm telling you.
So when you think, oh, I'm in a hurry, I'm in a rush, I'm trying to get out of traffic, guess what? Every other car on the road has the same objective as you. So when we all do it mindlessly, what we do is we just prolong our suffering because we now all just create chaos.
All right, so today we're not talking traffic. We talked about that yesterday. So today we're focusing on social media. And here's what we found as today's quote. Content is fire and social media is gasoline. I had to add the laugh.
I feel like I want to have, that sound when you strike a match? Yeah, I think that's...
So what do you think about this quote, Temi?
Content is fire and social media is gasoline. I think.
Do you agree?
Well, to some extent I do.
Okay.
Because we know that I think we're going to get into it in the course of the discussion. But social media is such a powerful tool. And so it's been, likened to gasoline. I get the context of that. I'll say much more about it when we get into this discussion. Let me not tell you everything I have, and I'm sure
we'll get to we'll take it. All right, so today, as I said earlier, this is our focus. We're talking about the social media bill, and the Nigerian government claims to be committed to accepting, especially the protesters' demand for the accountability and justice after the EndSARS protest. As we have seen them setting up inquiry panels and all of that, but the government also appears keen to proactively undermine the possibility of future protests by targeting social media and online expressions with the proposed regulation. So that's what we're talking about today. And JJ Omojua is here to discuss this. But first, let's take a break for what's in the news. Thanks for staying with us. So today we are just going straight into what we found in the news. And I'm going to go with Tammy. So what did you find for us? Tammy? I got it right?
You tried.
We're getting there.
Okay, so in the news today, there's this story about a petrol tanker laden with about 33,000 liters of petrol overturned on Festac Bridge. And, you know, petrol poured out of it. Very sad case. I didn't find out if, or I couldn't find any mortality, whether anyone was injured or anything like that. I didn't find that in the news. But what I found interesting is that, again, the sad story of petrol leaking, petrol pouring on the road, and people gather around with their liters of, with their kegs, you know, and they're scooping petrol. And, you know, I just thought to myself, this is dangerous. We all know it is dangerous. They know it is dangerous. I'm just wondering why they did it.
And they don't stop as well. Kara Bridge, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago.
2 days. I think it was 2 days ago.
It was 2 days ago.
On the Ibadan,
yes, expressway. I saw that fire.
So, but you know what struck me? I mean, Festac is near and dear to my heart. This is not the first time it's happening in that same spot. So I think this time it happened on the other side of the bridge. No, actually, sorry, I'm wrong. I confirmed this morning. It's on the same side of the bridge. So it was on the bridge on the part leading out of Festac. And this happened, I believe it was in 2017, and over 20 cars were burnt. I can't remember then as well if lives were lost, but I remember that literally the flame came down the bridge and engulfed all the cars. And the first question I asked this morning when I saw this was, but they stopped these tankers from actually taking that bridge, because it's a small bridge that goes over the canal water there in Amur. And I think to myself, why again? The rule was clear. I think after the last fire, the tankers were no longer allowed to go out of Festac that way. So to see this happening again, there's been a breach somewhere. Whether it's that somebody's bribing somebody or somebody has forgotten the rules and all of a sudden the tankers now know, oh, we can go through there and there are no consequences. But there's a reason, because this keeps happening. It's a very steep incline to which you have all, and you know, I see these tankers sometimes, there's, you know, a vehicle that's meant to use, 16 tires or something, you see there's half a tire here, there's no tire here.
Condemned tires.
You see what I mean? And then you wonder when it falls over. I mean, the part about people going to scoop fuel, of course, I mean, Nigeria is poverty.
If you see it, saying it's poverty.
Yeah, I mean, you put yourself at risk because you're not thinking, the first thing you're thinking is, I need to go and scoop this. But always sad to see. Glad that at least this time it didn't catch fire.
Absolutely. So what's your story?
So my story is, I just thought it'd be good to touch on this because it says that Lagos to temporarily close Works Road, Ikeja, and 2 others for construction from November 9th. So the Lagos State government put out a tweet yesterday which said the Lagos State Ministry of Transportation has announced plans to temporarily close Adejobi streets in Agege, Adebola Level Crossing and Works Road in Ikeja in continuation of the ongoing Nigeria Railway Modernization Project. And this is the Lagos-Ibadan section with the extension to Lagos Port Apapa. So this is just, I mean, it's quite a detailed story and it talks about the roads being closed each day from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. On the 9th, 10th and 11th of November for the construction. So that's from tomorrow up until Wednesday. The story also does propose alternative routes, which we won't go into now, but if you're affected by that, then it would be great to look at look on social media or look online where there are quite detailed information about the alternate routes that have been planned for the next 3 days.
Absolutely. Okay, so mine is bringing us back to reality of what we're going through. Because people still think that COVID-19 is not, or it's left the building. It's so interesting how they were celebrating, what's it called, Joe Biden yesterday. CNN was very careful to say, they're not observing social distancing. Because, that's part of the tool they used against Trump's campaign, that his people were not wearing. But you could see visibly that even all the celebrants, they had their nose, their face mask on and all of that. So, COVID-19 cases in another school. Lagos State discovers more COVID-19 cases in another school. And the story was one of the staff had fallen ill. So later, the staff tested positive for COVID-19. And, this is a private school in Lagos State. And they've started doing contact tracing as well. I don't know. Are they supposed to shut down the entire school?
So they're limiting exposure. Okay. So if you recall when they had the last school that had the cases with the students in Lekki, they kept the students isolated within the school. So here as well, it does say that they're working with the school to limit exposure and keeping, here it doesn't, I think it says 4 other people, but I don't think it explains that.
Yeah, and he also said that most of the infected persons were predominantly asymptomatic.
So I mean, the thing is, right, it feels
you can't even tell.
So easy for us to say that COVID, and I know I'm a huge, I say it all the time, COVID has left the group. But funny enough, I think that I woke up this morning, and I never ever really go on YouTube at that time of the day, but I went on YouTube this morning and I saw an influencer talking about her experience with having survived COVID and all of that. And it just made me stop and think, because I remember about 3 weeks ago, I got a notification from a friend abroad who talked about Nigeria, the numbers starting to go up. Because I'd stopped paying attention to the NCDC numbers. And you know me, I was following it every day, right? But she said, the numbers are going up. And now that as we're going towards the dry season, we have to worry about meningitis. We see how hot it is and Lassa fever. So guys, we just all need to keep washing our hands. We need to keep staying safe.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I would actually say that it's a good reminder. It's a good reminder for me. It's a good reminder for everyone. So usually I find that you walk into a place sometimes, even in Lagos, and you walk in with your face mask and
they're looking at you
They're looking at you like, so what is happening here? Like, how come you're the only one with a nose mask here? So it's a good reminder. And sometimes you begin to not pay as much attention to it.
Yeah.
So.
You actually give it to some supermarkets. They still maintain that policy. I think, I don't want to give them free publicity, but there are some supermarkets that I know that they are very strict with that. You must wash your hands first. They've created a place to wash your hands, where your nose mask, and they check your temperature before you go in, and they've maintained it. You would think that, okay, because everybody is almost relaxed, but no, people are actually paying attention to those things.
So something funny happened last week. Was it last week or a few days ago? So a friend pranked me. A friend who stays very close to me pranked me and said, she went for the COVID test and it came out negative. So it came out positive, sorry. And, I was in that state of counseling her, talking to her, okay, so they said it's going to be contact tracing next. What do we do? I've been in touch with you. And then all of a sudden, she says, I was just joking. She shows me the result. I felt like struggling. How do you joke with something like this? How do you joke with something like this? So I understand. Like that moment, it was emotional. This was just like 5 minutes. For that 5 minutes, I was counseling her. And then I was thinking about myself.
You should watch that video as well.
Have you really slayed you?
Yeah, it's so funny because she described it in the video where she goes, so when they started in contact tracing, are you feeling ill? No, okay. Well, I'm just calling to let you know I've been exposed. Silence.
That's not the best feeling.
The person is thinking, hello, are you there? Okay. But I've been having a headache. No, you're fine. You should watch it. It was good fun.
Very good fun.
I experienced it.
So that's all we can take on What's in the News. When we return, we'll be discussing social media bill. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back at the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Thanks for staying with us now. With thousands of young Nigerians participating in the demonstration, which eventually or originally began as an online campaign that eventually marked the largest national protest in Nigeria, given the role that that played out by young people, it was impossible to miss how digital tools on their smartphones, especially social media platforms, including Twitter, were leveraged to drive and organize and sustain the hashtag EndSARS protest. Now, for sake of argument, going by our quote that content is fire and social media is gasoline, how should government approach social media space in Nigeria? That's the question. Should it be regulated? So you answer us now. Let us hear what you have to say. Please join the conversation. Tweet at us at Plus TV Africa or at Wayshow Africa1 with the hashtag Wayshow, or send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So before I bring in our guests, I was going to ask Uti, what do you think about social media in general, in Nigeria? Do you think this regulation is a good step?
Okay. So I think on the last show, I think I kind of shared my thoughts around this, but what I will say is, look, social media is, in Nigeria, we've taken to it, as we do with most trends or things that come from other parts of the world. We've taken to social media in our own unique way. So, we do a lot of skits and funny videos and things like that. So we know how to share our stories in very engaging ways on social media. But it's, as a space, does it require some form of moderation? Personally, I think so. The challenge there is that the unique situation that we find ourselves in this country, where there's an absolute lack of trust on all parts, between ourselves, between us and the government and us. Nobody seems to think the best of anybody in all the various stakeholders and parties. So the question for me now is not about do we need it, it's more about how do we do it. So we've seen, and I think that anybody, whether you are in the yay or the nay category, I think everybody can, at some point, if you are realistic and if you're, let me not use the word realistic, if you're honest with yourself, everybody can admit at some point that, social media does have the ability to go wrong very, very quickly, hence fire gasoline. So it's not about whether or not we need to regulate it, it's how we protect ourselves, and that's how we need to think about it, us as a collective, how we protect ourselves, because it can go wrong, and we've seen it in other countries, and we see all the platforms themselves actively working to deal with that fake news problem. Because, we've come into a world of augmented reality now. There's fake videos, fake audio, fake pictures. Everything can be faked. So at some point, we have to admit that there are risks involved, and how do we mitigate those risks?
Absolutely. How about you, Temi?
So I think, to put it in a short way, I would say that it's now a question of defending freedom of information versus protecting other people. And that's avoiding fake news, avoiding the spread of fake news. So freedom of information is very important. It's even enshrined in our constitution. And then we have this other issue also that, ensures that you don't use your own interest, to disturb someone else, say something that is defamatory, for example. So that is what it is now. It's freedom of information, fake news. And I'm just looking at how we can go about it in a way that doesn't hinder freedom of information. And that's one of the reasons I'm excited to hear our guest today. I have a few questions for him, and happy to hear what he has to say.
We'll be happy to hear what he has to say. The truth is, I don't really know how. There has to be a creative way, because freedom in itself, is not really total. No matter what they say about freedom, it's not really total. There has to be some form of guide. If not, everybody will go ballistic. All right, so we'll bring in our guest. Japhet Joshua Omojuwa is a Nigerian blogger, author, public speaker, socio-economic, political commentator, and social media expert. And he's joined the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Japhet.
The pleasure is mine. Thanks for hosting.
Okay, so you heard a little banter on social media. Maybe you just give us like a background conversation on, because there's a call from, I think, the northern governors saying that they want us to regulate social media in Nigeria. And, you have been very vocal, online, telling everyone to, stand against it. It's wrong, it's this. Maybe we should start with that. Why is that so?
First of all, I don't agree that social media is gasoline. I thought that I needed to start with that, because when you put out an idea that social media is gasoline, you sort of try to entrench a single story. That because what does gasoline do? Gasoline makes fire combust. It creates more fire, and that's not exactly what social media is. Social media are tools. And so you can use those tools in different ways. You can use it to advance liberty and freedom. You can use it to advance the civic space. You can use it to advance your business. You can use it to spread fake news. So social media, it can be gasoline, but you can't say social media is gasoline, because that's not inherently and factually true, because it can have many expressions. Having said that, I would say that social media is being, as we speak, regulated. Probably the most powerful person in the world, the President of America, in the course of these elections has been regulated over and again based on the tweets he's posted. You see Twitter say that, they try to say that this thing might be misinformation, this thing might be factually incorrect. They don't particularly delete his tweets, but they let you, the reader, be able to see that this thing might be misleading you, or this thing is not true, it's not factual. And I started with that because the conversation on social media regulation in Nigeria sort of assumes that government cannot be in the wrong. That government, for instance, cannot be the one sharing fake news. That government pages cannot be the one putting out hate messages. But we've seen, even on the conversation on EndSARS, that government can actually also be wrong. The Nigerian Army put out 2 opposing statements with respect to the Lekki shooting.
Yeah.
So when we have this conversation, there's always this assumption that when the rule is supposed to be government making the rule against the people. And if we already established that government can be wrong, that government can be in the wrong with respect to the use of social media, then how do we then trust government to regulate a space like that? That's why I would totally go with how Facebook has done it, how Twitter has done it, how Instagram, how the major social media platforms have done it. And the reason is because they are the neutral. They are neutral in the conversation. So Twitter can flag a Donald Trump and can also flag a Joe Biden. But imagine if the US government had absolute control to flag what was fake news or what was not fake news. It would be very, very difficult. And that's for America that their institutions are actually strong. But it is to be a bit difficult to flag your president and say your president is posting fake news if the White House is managing what is fake or what is not fake. That really has to be said. The other thing is that, as we speak, Nigeria has more than enough laws on defamation. As we speak, electronic evidence is tenable in Nigerian courts. So if I post something against you that is a lie or that defames you, you can sue me to court, whether I posted it on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or whatever, because the content can be used in court against me. It's tenable. So this whole conversation, and I don't think it's funny to anyone that all of a sudden social media regulation is back to the fore, because it's coming at a time that a lot of Nigerians have found their voices through the EndSARS movement, which was very, very peaceful when it ran before certain elements got introduced into it from some very interesting forces that were clearly not involved with EndSARS. So it just so happens that now we're trying to have this conversation again. And I can tell you that this conversation is not being had from the point of people that genuinely care about fake news or hate speech. In my opinion, this is a backdoor attempt to gag the Nigerian people to limit people's voices and their right to free speech and their right and ability to question and put their government on their toes.
Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to refer to your explanation initially about gasoline. So when you were speaking, I think that my point of view is slightly contrary to yours, in the same way that you feel that it's not gasoline. Gasoline has many uses, right? The only point at which it becomes dangerous, because even in the element of combustion within a vehicle, there's a spark and there's the gasoline itself. That's why it's in your car. So the point is, there is a point at which gasoline combines with fire, where it becomes damaging, where it becomes dangerous. And that's the point that we're trying to put across in that statement that says, look, if it is not properly used, just in the same way if you leave an open keg of petrol next to a generator, it will explode. So the idea is, when you take it from that single narrative, it's the same thing that you're doing as well. So gasoline has many uses. Social media can be used in many ways. Now, for me...
when I say that, so gasoline has many uses. Gasoline, you can use gasoline to cook. You can use gasoline to burn a forest. But gasoline is for combustion, whether the combustion has positive uses or negative uses. When you say social media is, mathematically, that is, social media equals gasoline. And that's not true.
No, I'm simply saying the same thing you're saying.
Put that in an equation. So I'm saying that social media can be, of course it can be gasoline, but you can't say social media is one thing, because it's many things. Especially because it's not even social media, it's human beings. It's human beings. Social media can be, and for me, this is important, because if these guys in government start to hear social media is gasoline, I mean, what more excuse could you need? Because in their head, they don't even want to hear that gasoline has positive uses. What does gasoline do? It sets places on fire. But we can agree to disagree on this.
Yeah. Okay, so again, I think we're actually saying the same thing. I just wanted to put it in context that the same way you're saying social media, it's a tool. It can be used for many things. It's the same way gasoline can be used for many things. But I'll move on. My question, which is I like the point that you raised about the platforms being able to highlight a tweet by the president of the United States as being potentially false. Now, if we take that same perspective in Nigeria here, where we say that the government also puts out fake news, my question is, isn't that a different problem where it says that in Nigeria, our government is above the law?
I don't know.
Because that's where the problem is. If you have a regulation, in my mind, when I say social media should be regulated, I'm not excluding the government. Do you see what I mean? So if there's a regulation, it applies to everybody. It's all of a sudden the Nigerian army is not exempt.
Who makes the regulation?
Yeah, so we're saying this. So that's what I'm asking you, because you're saying it from the perspective that when that regulation is made by the government are above it.
I was very, very careful to lay a situation where we already have an arbiter that is neutral in the platform. And I gave an example of that arbiter moderating, some would say the most powerful person in the world, the President of the United States. I gave that example. And I did say that, just imagine if, and US institutions are very, very strong. And let's face it, Nigerian institutions are not. There is no Nigerian institution as we speak today that will flag the Nigerian president on social media and say that this thing that this president has posted is likely to be false or is fake news. None. Now, as we speak, let's not even begin to argue about that. So I'm saying that precedence has already been established. We don't need to create something new. We've seen it work. The platforms are already doing the moderation. One, the platforms are already doing the moderation. Two, we have more than enough laws right now. We have the cybercrimes law. We have the cybercrimes law that was signed by the immediate past president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, on his way out of government. We have the cybercrimes law, and people have been sued, prosecuted, and jailed for the cybercrimes law. Outside of the cybercrimes law, people have used the penal codes and the criminal codes to charge people for things that they posted on social media. I personally, and I think I speak for a lot of Nigerians that care about their rights to free speech and their liberty, and their rights as active citizens. I personally do not trust the Nigerian government and institutions to create enabling laws to moderate social media. Because for me, intention is everything. What's their intention? Why are they trying to do this thing? They're trying to do it because they think that, and they feel that our voices are too strong, our capacity to organize is too, it could be so spontaneous and so powerful and could be so devastating. And they're trying to do something about it. I refuse to believe anything otherwise. I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, so thank you for being here. Now I have a question that's
My
about
pleasure.
the basis of this law. Now there are two laws. I know that one is this social media law we're talking about, this bill, not law now, bill that has not been passed into a law, and then the one on hate speech. Now, so I would actually like to know, because I know a lot of people have different thoughts that are very interesting on these things, for and against. But looking at this social media bill, you know, the premise of this social media bill is saying that if the statement is false, and then there are other conditions, perhaps it's contravenes public safety or something like that. But the first premise is that if the statement is false. And from reading this bill, it seems to me that if the statement is found to be false, then they go to court, they find that the statement is false, evidence is given to show that the statement is false, and then they take measures. So they tell the person, take it down. Now, I would like to ask, do you not have faith in this system? Do you not believe that, oh, I mean, let's just go to court, and it's not like you're just going to say it is false once and for all. It's the court saying it is false after evidence has been adduced. And let's not forget that the person who alleges that it is false should be there to say, this is why it is false. So I'd actually just like to know, what are your thoughts on that? Is it that we don't have faith in this system, and that is the major
and I think
challenge?
that's the question
We're
I
not
was
really
trying to ask
looking
as
into
well,
the
that
law.
we just
We're
think the
not-
government are above the law.
Do you get what I'm saying? Do you get a feeling that it is lack of faith in the system?
I think you have the answer to the question in your head. You might not be able to say it as someone who is moderating the conversation, but I think you have the answer in your head. And the government also sort of has the answer, because the government sent its own security forces to arrest judges. The government did that. And that really speaks to the criminal justice system. If the same government doesn't trust the players, the key players of the criminal justice system, which are the judges. And the other thing is, if we had faith in the system, I don't think we would be so mad and be so fearful of government having certain power. I don't think we will be. The other thing is, the Nigerian Electoral Management Body, INEC, is called the Independent National Electoral Commission. Right? And we had to put the independence there to tell ourselves that it is independent. But we just saw the US. I don't like to compare the US, but because it's about almost 250 years of democracy versus
Ahead of us
20 years. So it's very different, but it's an immediate example. So I would rather use that example. All the bodies that organize, by the way, the US doesn't have some election body that organizes all the elections. The elections are organized subnationally. But none of those bodies has independence beside it. None. They're just regular electoral commissions. And why? They didn't have to. Because the institutions are, the trust is inbuilt into the institutions. The people trust the institutions. In fact, there were elections that, I think it was in Georgia. Yeah, in Georgia, the people that managed the elections, the governor, the secretary of state, were Republicans. And that's just the way it is. The other party will have their observers and everything, but forget about what Trump is saying. They're just saying things that you cannot do in that system because the institutions have been built to work. They have their feelings, they have their soft underbelly at times, but they've been built to work. So when someone asks me as an individual, as a Nigerian, do I not have faith in the system? I think every Nigerian you ask that question, they know the answer. And the answer is built into the way we react to the system. The answer is, and how do you know that? What's the reason for why do people go out of their way to get justice for themselves? Why do people catch thieves and beat up those thieves? Why is it that the first thing people think of is not to go to the police to report something? Why is it that they try to sort it by themselves? It's because inherently we don't have faith in the system. And that lack of faith is not unfounded. We've had several years of people, of our institutions not just doing the right thing. So I don't think this is a very tough question for any Nigerian to answer, because by virtue of, even if I told you that I had faith in the system, by virtue of our actions and how we react to the system and the things we do when it comes to the system, it really does show that we would rather trust ourselves than trust the system across the board, from the presidency to the lowest ranked person, from the biggest institutions to the lowest, to the smallest MDA. We really naturally, that is not to say, of course, that there are no institutions in Nigeria that are like the Nigerian statistics, what's it called, NBS, National Bureau of Statistics. I think they've done well. The Nigerian Extractive Industries, NATI, Transparency Initiative, I think they're doing well. I think you could pick out some like that, but generally speaking, I don't think the average Nigerian has faith in the system, and that's not because the average Nigerian is irrational. It's because through the years, government has shown that we really shouldn't trust them. That's what it is.
All right, so JJ, we're going to go on a very short break, because if we're saying that we don't trust the system, shouldn't the agitation be something a lot bigger than just social media, what's it called, regulation? Maybe we'll take that right after the break. We'll take a short break now. We'll see you later. Hi, for staying with us now. If you're just tuning in, we're discussing the proposed social media regulation. Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Tweet at us at Plus TV Africa or at Wayshow Africa 1 with the hashtag Wayshow, or send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-8038-4663. Why am I laughing now? We still have our guest with us, JJ Wojua. You know what? Let me take some few comments. Angela says, social media cannot be seen as the middle ground. People behind these companies have their bias, which also affects what they censor as fake or real. Either way, we just have mode of operations. Now, JJ, I was going to say to you that because during the EndSARS protests, when they were a lot of hashtag EndSARS and all of that, I think a particular guy, now I can't remember his name, Adamu or something, that called out the CEO of Twitter and saying that he was putting fuel in the protest by what's it called? What was the word he used? I can't remember what he said, but he came at the CEO of Twitter saying that he's inciting. Thank you, that was the word. He was inciting the youth. So whether we like it or not, there are human beings behind these companies like Twitter, Instagram, and the entire social media. So don't you think that if they also have, maybe they bought into the agitations of young people, they would also tend to want to take sides to those people, like what we saw, because people are even accusing, even the same United States, some people are accusing Twitter that they are biased towards Trump, they don't want him to whatever and all of that. So don't you think those kind of things might exist because they are also, first of all, human beings, they are not machines. So don't you think they can also decide to say, I want to take sides with maybe a cause that I believe in?
That's where believability comes in, right? That's where believability comes in. So there are several media organizations in Nigeria, several ones, and they don't have the same level of, there are people that will listen to the news on a media platform and then go to another media platform to confirm if it is true.
True.
There are people like that. There are some Nigerian platforms that if I hear a particular news, I still have to go to a particular platform to go and check if it is true. That's where believability comes in. And I'm sorry to say, anybody who believes the Nigerian government better than they believe Twitter, they have a right to. But I think if you did a regular start, people would ordinarily trust the Twitter platform. Of course, human beings will always be in charge of enforcing the law. Of course, human beings will always make mistakes. Of course, there are no perfect institutions. But we do know there are some climes and some institutions that, by and large, they are always, you always trust that they would follow the path of truth and facts. Except we want to deceive ourselves, we haven't exactly done that here to that point in Nigeria where I can trust the average Nigerian institution to follow the path of truth and fact, especially when government is a party in the matter. The other thing is, this whole thing about what if Twitter was taking sides. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, several celebrities all around the world were on the path of EndSARS. And for obvious reasons, they were taking sides with the people's voice. They were taking sides with the people's rights to protest. So there are certain things that should not be up for conversation. People should have, it's not just enshrined in the Constitution, it's one's fundamental human rights. You have the right to protest. It should not be something that somebody should say I wouldn't even want to have a conversation about, I don't know what you call it, whether Adamu or whatever it was. I tried to focus on important people and important matters during this particular EndSARS thing, so I really didn't pay attention to this person. But I don't think there should be any debate as to why Twitter would make themselves available and try to support the voice of the people as they were expressing it, or the likes of Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or lawmakers in the UK and people all over the world being on the side of the Nigerian people that came out to say, we don't want to be killed. This is forgetting about even the subject of why they were protesting. Their right to protest is sacrosanct.
True.
It is sacrosanct, and that's what you have to first of all understand and accept, that this is not anybody taking sides. There is no sides when it comes to fundamental human rights. There's only one side. There's no this side or that side.
And that's the side of justice.
They stood with that side. That's before you even start to talk about the subject of the protest.
Because
which was people saying, don't kill us.
Sorry to cut you. Because we have very little time left. If you were to propose something to the government, because do you even think at all some level of regulation should be present? That's the one question. But if you were to propose
there's already regulation.
Yeah, which you have mentioned.
Regulation
Yes.
currently exists.
Yeah, which you have mentioned. So if you were to propose something to the government about, how to go about controlling and managing information, what would that superior argument be to say, you know what, this cannot work like you're doing it, but I can propose this and this to you as a government?
Number one, why are you controlling? Why are you controlling? Why should you be controlling? It's not in your hands. Government should put out the information. If misinformation thrives in the absence of information, one, and then secondly, when a government has been known to repeatedly tell lies. And this is not specific to the APC government. This is specific to the Nigerian government through the years. So this is not about APC as an institution or Buhari as a president. This is about the Nigerian government through the years, right? So the first thing is for government to look at itself. If you're coming to equity, have you checked your hands? Are your hands clean? Because the government's hands are really not clean. I watched a video the other day where the Minister of Information repeatedly was denying that he knew anything about the social media bill. Something that was ubiquitous. It was all over the place. And he was repeatedly saying he didn't know anything about it. He didn't know anything about it. So let's make it easy for ourselves. The government should look at itself and ask itself, why are people agitating? What are people asking for? Why don't people trust government? What can you do? Take, for instance, you said you've ended SARS. People got killed. Who is being prosecuted? I've not heard of any police officer being arrested. The only thing I hear every day is one protester being arrested here and there. Well, today, Lagos State ordered for over 250 protesters, EndSARS protesters, to be released. That's not a sign of good faith. So when next week or next month or next year, people come out to protest and they refuse to go in, You're not going to blame them for refusing to go in, because government, again, as with NSAS, has shown that you should never trust them when they tell you go in, we'll do the right thing. These are the things that count. These are the things that make things. Nothing happens in isolation. The reality we face today is they are of the outcomes of the past. They are of the result of the consequences of the actions that we took yesterday. You've told people to go back indoor. You've told people that you sort their problems, and all you're doing is just arresting these protesters after they've gone in. And then the police people got killed. People didn't just die during the protest. They got killed. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody is being prosecuted as we speak. How do you expect me to trust that government? How do you expect me to believe that that government would be looking to do the right thing with respect to regulating my voice? I'm sorry, I can't. And every Nigerian should stand up against it. And I should also say, though, that no matter what the government does, you really cannot stop your people from voicing out. You can't. To do that, first of all, you have to by yourself dismantle the democracy, because it is inherent in democracy, including a nascent one like Nigeria. The people must have a voice. They must have the right to express that voice. And social media is just one of those places where they are able to express that voice. And you shouldn't do anything about it, but even if you do, you'll find out that you'll be met not just with resistance, you'll be met with the creativity of the people and their ability to jump over whatever barriers you put in front of them, because the voice of people will always, always, always be expressed.
Yeah. That's an interesting conversation. You have some comments?
So we have a comment here from Sally who says, in a world where traditional media can obviously be controlled, we need some level of uncontrolled platforms for democratizing information. Social media ensures we have that platform. So I think that's largely in agreement with what you were saying. I think that for me, the question I would ask, because it seems, and it's the same question I ask when I say, what is the plan when we go out to protest? So I agree that you have a voice, and I agree that we can all protest. But what is the plan? Do we intend to protest until February 18, 2023 in terms of getting somewhere in this conversation? So for me, I'm always very solution driven. So if we are at a standstill or at a point where the government says we want to, or we can see that there's a need for a social media regulation, can we not then, whether or not, and I fully agree, we were having a conversation before we went on air about the fact that the problem here isn't necessarily the social media regulation. The problem is a lack of trust between the government and the populace. So when we look at this social media regulation, we don't find a place where there is a huge problem. The only problem that I see is ambiguity that says, how do I define these things that causes, what was the word that was used? I think it was embarrass, like to embarrass the government, that was put into the bill. So there are all these things that seem very ambiguous, and it's in this ambiguity that the government is empowered to then use it for their own nefarious, purposes, if you want to call it that. So the question I ask is, how do we, let's just say that the social media bill or social media regulation goes ahead, which it seems like whether or not we all, come out en masse tomorrow, seems like the government is dead set on going ahead. How can we come to some middle ground that says, look, what are we going to do? If you say you must pass this, what voice can we have in that process? I know you say there's no point, but what can we actually do?
There's no middle ground when it comes to expressing my voice as a citizen. There's no middle ground. There's no middle ground. And I don't speak for myself, I speak for the average citizen. There's no middle ground when it comes to your ability to voice to speak your mind as a citizen. There's no middle ground. It's not a negotiation we're not discussing, trying to negotiate with terrorists, whether if they stop killing, you give them 20 years. We're negotiating human rights. We're negotiating free speech. There's no middle ground for that because it's not even negotiable, right? So government can go out of its way to do what it has to do. I'm hoping that the Nigerian criminal justice system will be able to stand up against it when people go to court and say, these are things you just cannot do. But even if the Nigerian criminal justice system doesn't do it, let's not even forget that the internet is not in the control of the Nigerian government. There are several governments that have tried to run the internet to control it. What's happened is that the diaspora stands up strong against them and they embarrass them immensely. And I really don't think that the Nigerian government and the people in the Nigerian government want to put themselves in such a situation where when they travel out of the country, they are dragged by international organizations. They're dragged by all these multilateral organizations and even the Nigerian diaspora, asking them, why are you gagging the voices of the Nigerian people? But I need to say again, there's no middle ground. And then someone mentioned that, are people going to protest to February 2023? I don't know. It's not my decision. I think that there's room for protest and there's room for going to sit down, to plot, to strategize, to know what you will do. But I'm not going to tell people, oh, go, don't protest again, whatever. I feel like it's an individual decision. And for those that have been able to form groups when they do these things, also they will sit down and have that conversation. I personally think that there's room for protest where you give voice to an issue, you have that issue amplified, and you bring that issue to the fore. And there's a place for now sitting down to ensure that the things that you ask for are now deployed in policies and laws. And sometimes those things don't happen out there on the field. So I don't personally expect that people will continually be out there protesting. That's not my strategy as a person. But I also respect the right of anyone that insists that they want to protest from now till the end of time. It's within their rights. It's just within their rights as citizens of Nigeria and as human beings.
Okay, so this is a comment from Rolake. She says, we need some bit of control and should have clarity on what control means. We have too many fake news as well as transparent views, but it cannot go on without some form of control. So this person says, I stand by control. That's this person's comment here. And you know, my thoughts on this, or listening to him and listening to everyone who is on this table now, my thoughts on this is that the foundation of it all is what he mentioned, you know, trust in the system. That I think is the foundation. You know why I say this? I say this because I've met some people who have not taken a look at the social media bill. They've not taken a look at the hate speech law either. And they just say, you know what, at this point, what is important is the motive. Why is it coming up now? Why is it coming up amidst so and so things? And it doesn't even matter that, oh, the foundation of this law, or at least speaking of the social media bill, is that it should be false. You know, when you say it should be false, like I said, it means we need to go to court to prove that it should be false. And if it's not false, ordinarily, you know, people shouldn't really feel, you know, uncomfortable with it. But because there's the challenge of trust, of that line between false and true, and finding out what truly is going to be the outcome of it, that's why I find that a lot of people are agitated. And you know, one of the things I think, now this is just a comment, one of the things I think about this is that generally when it comes to passing a law, the voice of the people really matters. And I find that even if this law, even if the government is looking, and passing this law with good intentions, or, you know, to actually, even if, now, assuming but not conceding, as we usually say, assuming that the government is looking to pass this law with good intentions, I find that the people, and we're not in that state, the people are not in that state to receive the law yet. The people are not in the state to trust the institutions yet. And they're saying, let's work with what we already have, because this looks to a lot of people like a winch hunt process. I think the government is for us. I mean, the National Assembly is for us. There are people, they're representing us. I think these voices of the people, the voice of people, we say is the voice of God. So I think the voice of people really matters.
Okay, so JJ, because we have 1 minute to go, we want to give you the last 1 minute. If you had something to say to the government right now, we know it is not right. I mean, this social media bill, I for one, I'm not here for it at all, but we have to do our job. So, but if you had something to say to the government, what would that be, you know, and what would you also say to the people? Because let's not forget as well that part of what we need to do as a people is to be responsible for what we put out there on social media. Amidst all the NSAS protests and all of that, lessons learned where there were a lot of people that had agenda that spread a lot of fake news amidst all of those things they were mixed up with the truth. So how can you talk to the people, citizens' responsibility, and what would you say to the government? Then we'll wrap up there.
To the government, I would say that ask the Nigerian people, if you don't know, ask them what their problems are. And that will be very, very easy for you to know exactly what to prioritize. And if you do ask them, I can assure you social media bill will not be on the last on the list of their problems, because it wouldn't even be on the list. They will talk to you about poverty. They'll talk to you about the educational system, the absence of water, insecurity, maternal mortality, child mortality, power, all of those things. Address them. When you address them, you wouldn't even have to bother yourself about social media, because people will start to talk about the fact that their lives are getting better. When you start obsessing about controlling people's voices, people should wonder, why are you obsessing? Is it because you're not doing what you're supposed to do? So government should do what it's supposed to do. As for the people, really and truly, there's always a cost to putting fake news out there, hate speech out there. People have lost their admission on account of the things that they posted on social media. Schools have admitted people, then people have shared the things that those people posted, and they've lost their admission. People have been arrested and prosecuted and sent to jail on account of the things that they posted. So you might have this feeling of anonymity and this feeling of power and freedom because you have access to social media, but there's always a cost. It can cost you legally, it can cost you socially, and it can cost you professionally, and in every other way. People have lost their jobs on account of things that they posted on social media in Nigeria and abroad. So don't even get it twisted. There are costs to misdemeanors and using social media for criminality. And even though we're beginning to have this conversation because of the Nigerian government about some social media bill, the laws already exist, and you better be careful so you don't get caught on the wrong side of the cyber crimes law and associated laws.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that's a fantastic way to wrap up. Thank you, JJ, for joining us this evening. And we hope the government is listening. We hope we are also listening, because there's the responsibility that we have to hold ourselves accountable. Because social media is such a powerful tool that you also don't want to mess it up. You want to be sure that whatever you're using it for, it is to drive the greater good of Nigerians. That's what I think should be at the back of the minds of every young person on social media. So we continue to push for good things, like he rightly said. There are many problems that we have, and if the government fixes all those problems, we'll not come at you on social media. All right, so please watch a repeat broadcast of this episode tomorrow at 3 p.m. It's been a very insightful conversation, heated a little bit, but good. Keep all the conversations going on all our social media platforms at Wait Show Africa 1 or at Plus TV Africa, as we continue to hear what you're saying. And in case you missed today's quote, well, our guest doesn't agree with it too. But it was not me that said it, was J. Bear. It says content is fire and social media is gasoline. All right, so we'll see you live tomorrow at 8 p.m. On Friday. Oh, it's Sunday.
Friday,
we'll see you Friday at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy your evening.
Bye.
Thank you, JJ.
This is Plus Politics on Plus TV Africa.
There were a lot of men, but they chose me.
Parties in Nigeria, they're simply platforms of convenience for people to go and aspire for power.
If you were not awarded a contract, then why are you coming here that you are aware?
Let me explain. No, it's okay.
Some people have also accused you of talking too much.
Even if I say things, people like Obasanjo should tell us, don't say that. Not that Obasanjo will be saying, and with results that will be carrying cane to go and say, Obasanjo, stop that.
If you have your family issues, you don't discuss them in the marketplace.
Those who will take over governance after the exit of the military will be mindful of the economic deprivation of our people.
Will the cost of governance ever be reduced?
Census good, but timing has to be right.
The people who are getting the palliative right now may be the wrong people because we do not have data.
Plus Politics, 7 p.m. Mondays to Fridays on Plus TV Africa.
lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
Thanks for joining us on News on the Hour on Plus TV Africa. Here are the stories making the headlines. I'm Annetta Felix. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the National Youth Service Corps to enroll corps members in the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS. Director General of the NYSC, Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim, made the announcement on Monday in Abuja. He said the Corps has also expended huge resources on critical health needs of corps members, including footing of medical bills. Shuaibu also assured that the NYSC has intensified liaison with security agencies to protect corps members at their places of primary assignment. The Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, has warned that Nigeria may experience a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ihekwazu disclosed this at the ongoing media briefing with reporters organized by the National Youth Service Corps on Monday. The DG advised Nigerians to abide by the COVID-19 protocols and guidelines such as hand washing and wearing a face mask to avoid a second wave of the virus. Doctors in Ondo State have embarked on an indefinite strike. The Association of Resident Doctors of Nigeria at the University of Medical Sciences Teaching Hospital announced this at an emergency meeting in Akure on Monday. They lamented the non-payment of their salaries by the state government. Last week, the aggrieved doctors had embarked on a 7-day warning strike to call government's attention to their plights. According to the doctors, the industrial action became imperative as the Ondo State government has been owing them their salaries for the past 4 months. President Muhammadu Buhari has charged politicians across the country to denounce the looting that caused the EndSARS protests across the country. The president's senior special assistant on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, said it would be of interest to Nigerians if PDP and politicians denounced the looting. Shehu gave the charge in response to the freezing of some EndSARS promoters' bank accounts by the Central Bank of Nigeria. CBN had prayed an Abuja Federal High Court to freeze the bank accounts of some EndSARS promoters pending the conclusion of the outcome of its investigation. However, Shehu said Nigeria is a country governed by law. Hence, wrongdoing won't be allowed. Appearing in an interview, Shehu said that the country has only one president and constitution. Buhari is responsible for his government, and the buck stops at his table. Members of the Nigeria police have arrested Aramosele Peter, one of the EndSARS campaigners in Lagos. Eromesela was arrested on Saturday, November 7th at his Ikeja residence. He was then transported to the office of the Commissioner of Police, where he was reportedly compelled to write a statement. Earlier, Plus TV Africa spoke to Eromesela's lawyer, Babatunde Jinadu. Take a listen.
I was at home when I got a call very early in the morning around 8 o'clock that some policemen have surrounded his house and they want to take him away. He said he's suspected to have been involved in a fraudulent transaction. They still at that point told me that I asked them what was his offense, that the constitution provides that a suspect at the point of arrest must be told